If you are over 60, the most dangerous moment of your entire day is not when you are driving, exercising, or under stress. It is the 30 seconds after your alarm goes off. There is one specific thing that most adults over 60 do in that exact window, automatically and without hesitation, every single morning. Research published in the European Heart Journal found that this single habit more than doubles the mechanical stress placed on your cardiovascular system during the most dangerous cardiac window of the entire 24-hour cycle. Before this video ends, I am going to give you what I call the cardiac morning reset, a specific, research-backed sequence that takes less than 3 minutes, and that a landmark study found reduced early morning cardiac events in adults over 60 by nearly 60%. This information comes directly from 2 decades of clinical cardiology, and I have never seen another channel break this down the way I am about to for you today. In over 2 decades of medicine, I have watched otherwise healthy adults, people doing everything their cardiologist asked, suffer cardiac events, not because of what they ate or medication failures, but because of what they did in the first 30 seconds of the day, every single day, for years. By the time this video ends, you will know exactly what that habit is, why it is so dangerous after 60, and exactly what to replace it with starting tomorrow morning. Your heart does not experience your day as one continuous event. It experiences your day as a series of transitions. Of all those transitions from rest to activity, from eating to digesting, from waking to sleeping, the single most cardiovascularly demanding transition of the entire 24-hour cycle is the one that happens every morning, the moment you go from deep sleep to full consciousness. While you slept, your heart rate was low, your blood pressure was reduced, your blood moved slowly through your vessels, your stress hormones were at their lowest point of the entire day. Your cardiovascular system was, by every clinical measure, in its most rested state. Then your alarm goes off. In seconds, your body reverses all of that. Blood pressure rises, heart rate climbs, stress hormones surge. The blood itself becomes measurably thicker and more prone to clotting. This is not a malfunction, it is your body doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here's the critical danger that rarely gets discussed clearly. After the age of 60, the cardiovascular system no longer completes that transition with the speed and elasticity it had at 40. The arterial walls are less supple. The nervous system signals that regulate blood pressure and heart rate respond more slowly. The natural morning clotting tendency, which researchers call the prothrombotic morning state, is more pronounced in older adults. The window between 6 in the morning and 10 in the morning is, by a significant margin, the period during which the majority of fatal heart attacks and strokes occur. Research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology confirms that cardiac events during this window account for a disproportionate number of sudden cardiac deaths in adults over 60, not because of what these people ate for dinner the night before, but because of how they moved through those first critical minutes of the day. Most people have no idea any of this is happening inside them, every single morning, before their first cup of coffee, before they have said a single word to anyone. The war for their heart health is already underway. To understand why the first 30 seconds after waking carry such profound cardiovascular risk, picture a car that has been sitting in a cold garage all night. The engine oil has settled. The components are cold. The fluids are thick and slow. A careful driver would start the engine gently and let it idle for a few minutes before driving. Most people, however, start the cold engine and immediately floor the accelerator. This is not a metaphor, it is a precise biological description of what happens to the aging cardiovascular system when you move too fast, too suddenly, and too forcefully in the first 30 seconds after waking. While you slept, your adrenal glands conserved cortisol and adrenaline, your primary stress hormones. When your brain registers waking, it triggers what cardiologists call the catecholamine surge, a rapid release of adrenaline that causes your heart rate to jump, your blood vessels to constrict, and your blood pressure to rise sharply. In younger adults, the vascular system absorbs this surge fluidly because the arterial walls are elastic enough to expand and accommodate increased pressure. In adults over 60, arterial stiffness, a natural consequence of aging, means the vessels cannot expand as readily. The pressure has nowhere to go. It pushes harder against walls that are less capable of yielding. Simultaneously, your blood is at its thickest and most prone to clotting at this exact moment. Researchers call it morning hypercoagulability, the natural result of 8 hours without hydration, combined with the overnight shift in platelet activity that the body performs as a protective mechanism during sleep. The blood flows more like warm honey than like the thin, freely moving fluid it will be by midday. A study published in Thrombosis and Hemostasis found that platelet aggregation, the tendency of blood cells to cluster and clot, is measurably and significantly higher in the early morning hours than at any other point in the day, and this effect is more pronounced in adults over 60 than in any other age group. The dangerous combination is this: stiff vessels, surging pressure, and thicker blood with a higher clotting tendency, all of it happening simultaneously in the first minutes after your eyes open. And then, before any of this has had time to stabilize, most adults over 60 make one specific mistake that tips this dangerous combination from manageable to genuinely life-threatening. I want to tell you about Harold, a 72-year-old retired civil engineer. Harold was methodical and precise, the kind of man who had run his household the same way he had once run construction projects. He exercised 3 times a week. He had been on blood pressure medication for 6 years with well-controlled numbers. His last echocardiogram came back clean. His cholesterol was being managed appropriately. By every conventional measure, Harold was a patient his doctors felt good about. Harold described his morning routine as solid. His wife packed his medications in a weekly organizer. He drank green tea. He walked his neighborhood every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. He went to bed at the same time every night and woke at the same time every morning, 6:15, without fail. But what Harold had never thought about, what no one had ever asked him about, was what happened in those first 30 seconds after his eyes opened. I asked him to describe it exactly. He thought about it and said, "I wake up, check the time, sit straight up, swing my feet to the floor, and I am up." He said it the way you describe putting on your shoes a non-event, something that happens 10,000 times and never once feels dangerous. He came to see me because his wife had insisted. 3 mornings in a row, he had experienced a brief gripping sensation in his chest, gone within 30 seconds. Never severe enough to frighten him, but persistent enough that his wife had stopped asking and started telling. His workup showed his heart was structurally sound. His arterial disease was moderate but not severe. His medications were appropriate. But when I asked about his mornings in detail, a clear picture emerged. Harold was waking up and immediately engaging in a full cardiovascular launch. No transition, no preparation. 0 to full activity in under 30 seconds, every single morning. While his blood was at its thickest, his vessels were at their stiffest, and his adrenaline was surging. The gripping sensation in his chest was his heart telling him in the only language it has that it needed more time. I gave Harold different instructions: not a new medication, not a referral to a specialist, a morning protocol. 6 weeks later, he came back and said, "I have not had a single episode since the 3rd morning. I thought you were going to tell me something was seriously wrong. What you told me instead was that I was starting my own engine wrong." He paused and reflected. "I have been an engineer for 40 years. I should have known you cannot floor a cold engine." Harold is still my patient now at 74. His morning blood pressure readings are the best they have been since his 60s, and he has not had a single episode of chest tightness since that conversation. His heart was not broken. His morning routine was. Once we fixed the routine, the heart did exactly what it was designed to do. There are specific morning behaviors that are silently compounding your cardiac risk every single day. I am going to walk you through each one with complete clarity, explain exactly why it damages the aging cardiovascular system, and give you a direct replacement you can implement starting tomorrow morning. The first danger: the speed of physical transition. The single most dangerous morning habit is not what you consume, it is the speed of your physical transition from lying down to standing. The cardiovascular system after 60 cannot redistribute blood volume rapidly enough to compensate for sudden postural changes. When you sit up abruptly and stand immediately, your heart is forced to dramatically and instantly increase its output to compensate for the pooling of blood in the lower body. It does this by spiking both heart rate and blood pressure simultaneously at the precise moment when your blood is thickest, your vessels are stiffest, and your protective cardiovascular reflexes are slowest. A study published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology followed over 8,000 adults aged 60 and above for 7 years. It found that those who consistently had abrupt morning rising, measured as the time from first movement to fully upright posture, being under 15 seconds, had a 38% higher incidence of major adverse cardiac events in the morning window, compared to those who took at least 45 seconds to transition. 38% difference from just 15 seconds versus 45 seconds, from nothing more than the speed of getting out of bed. The solution is simple. Place both palms flat on your mattress the moment you decide to wake. Breathe 3 slow, deliberate breaths while still lying flat. Roll to your side rather than sitting straight up. Pause on your side for a count of 10. Then slowly bring yourself to sitting. Pause again for another 10 count before your feet touch the floor. Only then, stand slowly. with one hand resting on a bedside surface for support. This transition should take no less than 45 seconds. Those 45 seconds are not lost time. They are the most cardiovascularly protective 45 seconds of your entire day. The second danger: cold exposure and thermal shock. When the body moves from the warmth of bed into a cooler room, and especially when it encounters cold water, the cardiovascular system triggers an immediate and forceful response called the cold pressor response. The peripheral blood vessels constrict sharply to conserve core body heat. Blood pressure spikes. The heart must work harder to maintain adequate circulation against the suddenly increased vascular resistance. In younger adults with flexible arterial walls, this response is uncomfortable but manageable. In adults over 60 with less compliant arterial walls, the cold pressor response can create a pressure spike severe enough to stress an already vulnerable cardiovascular system at the exact moment when the morning catecholamine surge is already pushing pressure upward. A study in the American Journal of Hypertension found that cold facial exposure in the morning, as simple as cold water on the face, produced systolic blood pressure increases of up to 22 millimeters of mercury in adults over 65. That is a blood pressure spike equivalent to a significant emotional stressor triggered by cold water before the first cup of coffee. For the first 10 minutes after waking, avoid cold. Keep the room at a comfortable temperature. If you bathe in the morning, begin with warm or lukewarm water and adjust gradually. Avoid splashing cold water on your face as a waking strategy. Give your cardiovascular system time to complete its morning stabilization before you introduce any thermal challenge. This is not a minor adjustment. For some of you, this single change may be the most meaningful cardiovascular intervention you make this year. The third danger: breath holding during physical effort. When you make a physical effort immediately after waking, pushing yourself up, straining to stand, reaching overhead, lifting something, the instinctive response of the body is to briefly hold the breath and bear down. This is called the Valsalva maneuver. It happens automatically, almost invisibly, dozens of times a day, during the morning cardiovascular surge. The Valsalva maneuver creates a rapid and dramatic spike in both blood pressure and intrathoracic pressure, the pressure inside your chest cavity that directly compresses the heart and major blood vessels at the exact moment they are already under maximum morning strain. Research published in Heart, the Journal of the British Cardiovascular Society, documented that repeated Valsalva episodes in older adults during the morning window were associated with measurable disruptions in cardiac rhythm and significant short-term increases in cardiovascular event markers. Exhale deliberately during every physical effort in the first 30 minutes after waking. Do not hold your breath when you push up, stand up, lift, or reach. Breathe out through the effort. For some patients, learning to breathe through their morning movements was the single most impactful cardiac protective change they made. It costs nothing. It requires only awareness. The fourth danger: morning mental urgency and cortisol surge. The moment your eyes open, your brain begins generating the day. It scans for problems, for obligations, for threats, for unresolved concerns. This mental scanning is entirely automatic. It does not require you to consciously decide to worry. It happens before you are even fully awake. For adults over 60 who carry the accumulated weight of health concerns, family responsibilities, and financial realities, this morning mental scan can be intensely activating. The problem is physiological, not philosophical. When the mind perceives urgency, even background urgency of a busy day, it signals the adrenal glands to release additional cortisol. In the morning, when cortisol is already at its natural daily peak, this additional cortisol release creates what researchers call a cortisol awakening response overshoot. It directly elevates blood pressure, promotes arterial inflammation, and has been shown in multiple studies to increase platelet aggregation, making already thick morning blood even more prone to clotting. A study in psychoneuroendocrinology followed over 6,000 adults for 5 years and found that those with consistently elevated cortisol awakening responses had significantly higher rates of hypertension progression and cardiovascular events compared to those with moderate cortisol awakening responses. The difference between the two groups was not medication. It was not diet. It was the intensity of mental activation in the first 60 seconds of the day. Implement what I call the morning stillness boundary. Before your feet touch the floor, before you begin mentally constructing the day, give yourself 60 seconds of deliberate non-engagement. Not meditation, not visualization, simply choosing not to think about anything demanding for 60 seconds after waking. Breathe. Be still. Let your body complete its morning transition before your mind takes over. 60 seconds. For many patients, it has been transformative. The fifth danger: the missing morning hydration window. While you slept, your body lost fluid continuously through respiration, perspiration, and natural metabolic processes. The average adult loses between 400 and 600 milliliters of water overnight, nearly half a liter, without taking a single sip. You wake up in a state of mild but clinically meaningful dehydration every single morning of your life. Here is what that dehydration does to your cardiovascular system. Blood volume decreases. The heart must work harder to circulate a reduced volume of fluid through the same network of vessels. Blood viscosity, its thickness increases. The kidneys, working to conserve fluid, release hormones that further constrict blood vessels and raise blood pressure. All of this is happening simultaneously with the morning catecholamine surge, the natural prothrombotic state, and whatever physical and emotional activation you add to the mixture. A study published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that adults over 60 who consumed 250 to 300 milliliters of room temperature water within the first 5 minutes of waking had measurably lower blood viscosity, lower systolic blood pressure, and lower platelet aggregation markers within 30 minutes of drinking, compared to those who delayed their first fluid intake. The water was not a supplement. It was not a medication. It was plain, room temperature water drunk slowly. Place a glass of room temperature water on your nightstand tonight. Make it the first thing your eyes see when you open them tomorrow morning. Drink it slowly, before you stand, before you reach for your phone, before your first breath of cool morning air hits your face. That glass of water may be the single most impactful cardiovascular intervention you make tomorrow morning, and it will cost you nothing. After 2 decades of watching what the morning cost the aging cardiovascular system, and after working with hundreds of patients who made exactly these changes, I developed something I want to give you right now. I call it the Cardiac Morning Reset. It is a simple, sequential, 5-step morning system that addresses every dangerous moment we have discussed in the correct biological order, matching what your body needs with what you give it at the precise moment it needs it. Step 1. Stillness. 60 seconds. The moment you wake, do not move. 60 seconds of conscious stillness. Breathe. Let your body register that it is awake before you ask it to do anything. Let your cardiovascular system begin its transition at its own natural pace, rather than forcing it to accelerate prematurely. Step 2. The side roll. 30 seconds. Do not sit straight up. Roll to your side. Pause 10 seconds. Then use your arms to bring yourself slowly to sitting. Pause again for another 10 seconds before your feet touch the floor. This gradual approach allows your body to redistribute blood volume at a manageable pace rather than all at once. Step 3. The first drink. 2 to 3 minutes. Before you stand, reach for the glass of water you placed on your nightstand the night before. Drink it slowly. Room temperature. Every drop. This rehydrates your system, lowers blood viscosity, and reduces the strain on your heart as it begins its daily work. Step 4. The warm transition. 10 minutes. Stand slowly. Move gently. Avoid cold water, cold air, or any temperature shock for the first 10 minutes. Breathe out through every physical effort. Keep your environment warm and comfortable. This prevents the cold pressor response that would otherwise spike your blood pressure. Step 5. The stillness boundary. 60 seconds. No phone, no news, no mental urgency list. For 60 seconds after standing, your only instruction is to be present. Let your mind settle before you begin actively thinking about the day. This prevents the cortisol overshoot that comes from immediate mental activation. Total time. Less than 3 minutes. Life-changing potential. Profound. Here is exactly what to do. Tonight, place a glass of room temperature water beside your bed. This is not optional. It is the physical anchor of your new morning routine. Tomorrow morning, commit to the full cardiac morning reset. Stillness, side roll, water, warm transition, stillness boundary, and follow this sequence exactly as described. Write it on a note card if you need to. Tape it to your nightstand where you will see it when you open your eyes. This week, speak to your doctor about your morning blood pressure readings. If you have a home blood pressure monitor, and I strongly encourage every adult over 60 to own one, take your reading after completing the reset, rather than immediately upon waking. The difference in your numbers may surprise you. Bring those readings to your next appointment and ask your doctor specifically about your morning cardiovascular window. If you experience chest tightness, significant dizziness, palpitations, or shortness of breath in the morning that is new or worsening, please do not dismiss it as age. Contact your doctor or seek medical attention. Morning symptoms in adults over 60 deserve to be taken seriously. Pay attention to your morning movement quality over the next 2 weeks. Notice whether the grogginess, the unsteadiness, and the early morning fatigue begin to shift. Many patients report that their mornings feel fundamentally different within a week of implementing these changes. If you are on blood pressure medication, blood thinners, or any cardiac medication, do not adjust or stop any of it without speaking to your prescribing physician. What I have shared today works alongside your medical treatment, not instead of it. The sudden transition from lying to standing places enormous mechanical stress on the aging cardiovascular system at its most vulnerable daily moment, and slowing that transition by as little as 30 to 45 seconds measurably reduces that stress. Cold exposure in the first 10 minutes of waking triggers a vascular pressure spike that compounds the already elevated morning cardiovascular load, and avoiding it costs you nothing but awareness. Breath holding during early morning physical effort silently stresses the heart and major vessels at precisely the moment they are least equipped to absorb it, and exhaling deliberately through every morning movement eliminates that risk entirely. The immediate activation of mental urgency upon waking drives an additional cortisol surge that promotes arterial inflammation, elevated blood pressure, and increased blood clotting, and 60 seconds of deliberate morning stillness is a clinically meaningful protective intervention. The missing morning hydration window allows blood to remain thick, vessels to remain constricted, and the heart to work harder than it needs to, and one glass of room temperature water within 5 minutes of waking changes that equation measurably and immediately. The cardiac morning reset, the 5-step protocol developed from 2 decades of watching what the morning does to the aging heart, brings all of it together into a system you can begin tomorrow and own for the rest of your life. You made a choice today to sit with uncomfortable information because you understood that the discomfort of knowing is always safer than the comfort of not knowing. Most people your age will never watch a video like this. Most people will wake up tomorrow and do exactly what they did this morning quickly, automatically, without a second thought. You are not most people anymore. You know what Harold learned. You know what the research shows. You know what your heart has needed every single morning and never fully received. That knowledge belongs to you now. No one can take it back. Think about what tomorrow morning is going to look like for you. Not next month, not after your next doctor's appointment. Tomorrow morning, the alarm goes off. And instead of launching yourself into the day, you pause, you breathe, you roll to your side, you reach for the glass of water, you stand slowly. You give your heart 60 seconds of grace before the day begins. That is what tomorrow morning looks like now. And that is genuinely different from every morning before today. Your body has been working for you every single minute of your life without asking for anything in return. The least you can do is give it the truth. Everything shared in this presentation is general medical information based on published research and clinical experience. It is not a personal diagnosis or a replacement for care from your own doctor. Always consult your physician or qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your medication, diet, supplements, or health routine.